to their own publications. It is because, Honorable Speaker, to serve that mwananchi effectively, we must have laws in place. And when something becomes a law, then everyone is mandated to follow the law, Honorable Speaker. We have had farmers suffering the way they are actually not getting service deliveries. We have had even in the transport industry, borders complaining and all that, Honorable Speaker. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, it is a mandate as a Senate to ensure that this bill becomes law, so that eventually when it becomes law, county assemblies can come up with bills. County assemblies can even gazette the bills, and when they gazette the bills, Honorable Speaker, they can be followed to the letter. Honorable Speaker, as a Senate, we have no option. We just have to ensure that this bill is becoming law. Honorable Speaker, unless a bill is published, it cannot become law. And so it means that whatever the county governments are doing cannot be effective. If they can come up with draft laws, but eventually they go to the national printers. And by the way, Honorable Speaker, even going to the national printers is a harrowing experience, Honorable Speaker, because the national printers, is a skeletal work, considering that they have to serve all the 47 counties. Now, if they're going to serve all the 47 counties, they may not be able to manage the bulk of work that comes before them, Honorable Speaker. So there's need to devolve county printing services, Honorable Speaker. There's need to ensure that all counties are able to do their own works, Honorable Speaker. And when I'm talking about that, Honorable Speaker, all counties have their own preferences. All counties have their own priorities. You'll find that in some counties, they'll be keen about fisheries. In some counties, they'll be keen about sugarcane. In some counties, they'll be keen about coffee, Honorable Speaker. So I want to say, Honorable Speaker, when laws regarding what people really, value in counties are passed, and these laws are, after assent, they are published in the Gazette, then they become law, they become authentic, they become valid, and it becomes also an encouragement to county executives, Honorable Speaker, because it also becomes, valuable to county assemblies, Honorable Speaker, because if they can be in the county assemblies legislating, and eventually whatever they're legislating does not become law, or it takes a whole long period to become law, it becomes very discouraging, Honorable Speaker. I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that this bill by Senator Were, it looks small, but it's heavily loaded, because it is touching on each and every aspect we do at the Senate, Honorable Speaker. As a Senate, we represent the counties and the interests of the counties. So whatever we do has to do with counties. So it is just in the interest of the Senate that everything we do is also supporting the counties. So which means that communication has to be in the counties, so that whatever is happening in the counties, it is communicated, it is gazetted, and when it is gazetted, it becomes law. Then that way the counties will actually have the strength to do what they are doing, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we must also know, Honorable Speaker, that when people are overworked in the amount of work they're doing, they may not be effective, Honorable Speaker. Like the national printers, they're actually overworked with the amount of work they're doing. And yet, this work can still be devolved, so that every county government has an office that deals with, with bills, with legislation and all that. And then an officer is also put in charge of the bills that go to be printed. And also that officer has a secretariat. So, Honorable Speaker, I support that this bill needs to become law, so that eventually we are able to serve that common man, and not only serve that common man, but serve the common man effectively, Honorable Speaker, because that is our mandate as a Senate. Remember, Honorable Speaker, we are here because of the Senate, because of mwananchi. We are here because of the county governments, and to ensure that mwananchi in every county government is represented and is satisfied, and the service delivery in the counties, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in the 47 counties, you'll find that there's some issues that, come up every day. Like, for example, issues of land dispute. You'll find that issues of land dispute sometimes can even make people very uncomfortable. But if there are laws, per county that counties can come up with, specific counties can come up with, and say that in the event of a land dispute, this is what is going to happen. In the event of any dispute in the county, this is what is going to happen. It is gazetted and it becomes law. Then people are going to live harmoniously, and we are going to ensure that the law will ensure that everyone is satisfied, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to suggest that As my fellow senators support this bill, and I know everyone is in support of this, I hope that when the bill goes to the National Assembly, it will see the light at the end of the day, and eventually it will become law. So I want to support this bill because it is going to ensure that county governments are able to come up with an authentic document that will be permanent, that will be official, that will help with governance, that will help county executives and county governments execute their mandates constitutionally, as mentioned in our constitution, and the fourth schedule, part 2, the 14 functions of the county government. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I support this bill.
Senator Argura.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank Senator Were for bringing up coming up with this bill, because it serves a very important purpose. It fills a very important gap in law, because it's very clear that the whole essence of devolution is to devolve service delivery to the lowest level, and part of that service delivery is legislation, which is being done by the county assemblies. And as the Constitution has clearly stated, for the county assemblies to legislate, as stated in Article 199, it does not take effect until it's published in the Gazette, and it talks of the County Gazette and also the Kenya Gazette. We have the Kenya Gazette, but the County Gazette, which is being referred to in the Constitution, which Constitution was actually promulgated in 2010, still is not in effect, and the Kenya Gazette, as it has been discussed or indicated by the earlier contributors, is being overworked, and also it affects actually the service delivery at the county level, because they have to queue to get their laws published and gazetted. And in this case, this serves a very important purpose. First of all, in fulfilling that loophole or that vacuum which is there, because an institution is being referred to in law and it's not in existence. So it's hindering performance of the functions of the counties. And also, it's very clear that because of the importance of a gazette notice, which is having the force of law, people at the county level who seek service from the government at that level still have to come to the government printers in Nairobi to gazette whatever they want to have gazetted. So this is a very important bill, and it fills a very important purpose. So it's very important to have it, and I hope once it's passed, then the counties can operate smoothly without having to come to Nairobi to queue for the publication services. Mr. Speaker, the only thing which I'd like to have the sponsor of the bill look at is the issue of having that office under the CEC, because it has been referred to in terms of maybe manipulation by the governor. It needs to be, because a governor sometimes may be an interested party, it needs to be having some independence at that level. How it will be crafted so that, as you can see, the recruitment is being done by County Public Service Board, which is an independent body at that level. If that also could have some independence, so that there's that feeling. Sometimes, even when the members of the public need to have something gazetted, it might have some negative impact on the governor or the government itself. So if they are controlling it, then it may not be easy. As it has been referred to in the case of, if it's something to do with maybe an impeachment of a governor where the speaker is calling a special sitting, the governor may have some way. Even at this level now, at the national level of the government printers, then if the governor, he or she controls the county gazette, then that person will have more effect on that performance of its function. So there's need to look at how it can be independent still at that level, the county level. Mr. Speaker, This is a very important institution at that level, and we need to support it, and I hope that the bill will quickly go through the two houses so that the counties will have that autonomy and they will be able to plan their legislations. But as it has been said, there's need to link the county gazettes with the national gazettes, and also so that, as it has been said, maybe it will be an edition at that county level. Maybe the Kenya Gazette, Marsabit edition, Isiolo edition, that way, and it should be available to all Kenyans, because I believe a law enacted in any part of the country will affect all Kenyans, because they'll need to maybe get service even in that part of the country. So they need to know that a law has been passed in Marsabit. Even if I'm in Nairobi, then it will affect me when I would like to access some service in Marsabit. So there's need to have that circulation, and if there's a way to have it anchored in law, so that once it's published at a county level, it's still available at the national level. Maybe there's a way of linking the publications of the county gazettes with the national, the government printer, so that it's easily available to all Kenyans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator James Orengo, Leader of Minority.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I commend very much this bill and thank Senator Petronilla Were for coming up with this bill. It's creating a legal framework for the enforcement of the provisions of the County Government Act in relation to the need to have a county gazette, and also generally under the Constitution, that normally the publication of bills is a necessary instrumentality for decisions to be effected. And therefore, this bill probably should have come out earlier. It is unfortunate that it's coming eight years after the establishment of, or 9 years after the establishment of county governments. So all in all, there is nothing really to say, to criticize this particular bill. The only fear that I have, and probably Senator Petronilla Were, if you could take an account, and I think I heard Senator Wetangula say some things which would point to mischief which may be committed by certain people in ensuring that the operations of the Gazette, County Gazette, does not take place as should. And I'm looking at clause 5A, and I think it may be a dangerous clause if it is left in this form. And Mrs. Speaker, just for clarity, if I may read it, it says the office of the county printer shall be responsible for the printing and publication of the county gazette, and shall A, publish in the county gazette such documents and information as approved by an authorized officer. Now, I think that is a dangerous provision, because it means that nothing will get in the county gazette until an officer who is a public officer within the county approves such a publication. If it's a matter which is required by the law to be published in the Kenya Gazette, nobody should seek an approval. It should be self-executing. And you know the danger that I see here, if you go to a county where there is, and I think Senator Wetangula talked about it a little bit, if you go to a county where there is a problem between the county assembly and the county government, and there is a publication that is required to be made in the county gazette at the behest of the county assembly. If such a publication has to await an approval of an officer sitting within the executive, I'm sure that such an officer will frustrate such publication from taking place. And therefore, there's need to reword that clause 5A if is anything that is required to be done by law, no approval then should be required from an officer. And such an officer is said to be acting under the office of a county member of the county executive committee. So I'd propose that this particular clause be reframed so that no one within the county executive can frustrate any publication that is required by law, be it national law or laws made by the county assembly. Now, you know that, and probably, Mr. Speaker, going to the future, maybe even Parliament may require its own printer. I'm not sure that, I'm not talking about a gazette, but probably with the amount of printing in terms of legislation that normally accompanies the enactment of legislation of both houses, for purposes of accuracy and record, we may need to think about whether we need such an office within Parliament. And of course, this may be necessary going by history. Sometimes we do not realize how many times, particularly when it comes to notices, how many wrong notices are put in the Gazette to mislead, and even in the government printer, issues have arisen when Gazette notices or even enactments made by Parliament are changed or altered. And for that matter, in order for Parliament to have its own record of the laws that we enact and the subsidiary legislation that goes through Parliament, that we need a printer. Just like a university normally has a printer. Oxford University Press, is a printer for the university. And I think looking to the future and knowing that Parliament is going to consist of many, many people, I think at the end of the day, next year, if certain things happen, you may end up with 400 to 500 members of Parliament. And you need a repository of what we are, our own product, which is legislation, so that you don't have to go to the government printer, to get a piece of legislation, which has come from us. And for the very purpose that counties also require printers, I think that Parliament also may require a printer going to the future. And this also goes in tandem with the need to devolve. So the printing, the government printer, that office is being devolved by effect of the County Government Act and operationalized through this bill. So, Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill and support it fully. I thank you.
Senator Masinza, Naomi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support the Senator Petronila's bill on the county printers to decide how to devolve the bill. The printers. Mr. Speaker, it is important that everyone gets to understand that when you access information, then you are free of contradiction. Mr. Speaker, this bill then gives us gives us the opportunity for decentralizing the printers that we have, or that we have in our or much of the work that is done in the county government printer. Mr. Speaker, it then facilitates again to be specific, it facilitates the effectiveness, the transparency, and the accountability of the work that is done at the county. to be more reliable and more of the transparency that we need in the station. Mr. Speaker, when we talk about the decentralizing these services, we look at more work being devolved, and to be very specific, when you look at most of the work that is mostly takes place in the government printer, there's so much work that is at the county, government printer, and if we have all these printers devolved, it will be better for the citizens to rely on their work and to access information quickly. Mr. Speaker, I want also to say that if amendments then are to be done on this bill, we look at the amendments of if the budget cannot allow, we can even introduce the issue of having regional printers introduced regionally, like we have in the whole of the government. We have like 10 regional printers, so that we can facilitate the work, the documentation that is done at the counties. Probably several counties coming together and getting one regional printer. Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that there is much that has been done with our county assemblies in terms of legislation performance. And all this needs to be documented, especially when it comes to documents in software and access to the people who are responsible for those documents. Therefore, with this bill, then we get a proper framework that will enable those legislation acts that have been done with our county assemblies be fast-tracked when we have these particular stationaries. Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that looking at the budget plan, not all counties will be in position to plan for this station. But with the law in place, then they will be forced to budget for their own stations and make sure that this bill or their work is documented and their work is fast-tracked. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the Gazette notice of important documents, important conversations that are done, we find that most of the things that are done in county governments come all along to Nairobi in only one government printer that needs to be documented or to be processed there. Therefore, this printer, just like when another person has his or her own printer in her office or in his office, then the counties will be facilitated in that term, and therefore the good thing is that work will be processed, effectiveness of this work will be done, and the responsiveness of the service provision compared to what we have here will be fast-tracked and will be facilitated. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I support this bill, and I encourage my sister Petronila that when this bill has been passed or will be passed, we shall have more of the work being processed at the county level, and more counties will be responsible of their own documentation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support.
Senator Stewart Mazayo.
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, kwanza nataka kumtolea shukrani sana dada yetu Were kwa kuweza kuja na bili kama hii ya mchapishaji wa taarifa hususan yanayojiri ndani ya county, serikali za county. Ni mchapishaji wa magazeti ambayo yanahusikana na serikali za county. Spika, ni jambo ambalo limekuja, Bwana Spika, ni jambo ambalo limekuja kwa saa kamilifu ya kwamba wakati huu tunahitaji kuona kwamba sheria zetu za county zimewezwa kukimu ili ziweze kusaidia watu walio nyumbani. Bwana Spika, kwa mara nyingi sana tunaona ya kwamba kumekuwa na ucheleweshaji wa kuchapisha taarifa ndani ya serikali za ugatuzi. Hususan imekuwa ni lazima waje Nairobi, ni lazima wapate kibali kutoka kwa mchapishaji wa serikali ya kitaifa, alafu ndio taarifa zao ziweze kuchapishwa katika gazeti la serikali. Hivi sasa tunasema ya kwamba pia county ziwe na uwezo, umuhimu wa kuweza ya kwamba kuona ya kwamba ikiwa ndani ya serikali zao ikiwa ndani kunahusikana na mambo ambayo yanahitaji kuchapishwa, itakuwa na urahisi zaidi. Bwana Spika, tunaona hii ni sawa kabisa na hakuna ukiukaji ama uvunjaji wa sheria. Tunaona ya kwamba mkondo kama huu unaweza kusaidia sana katika zile kaunti. Ndio sababu hapo awali ama hapo kitambo kidogo tuliweza pia tukapitisha kwamba kuwe na mkuu wa sheria ambaye ni county attorney, mkuu wa sheria katika serikali zetu za ugatuzi. Kwa hivyo sasa, kama vile tunaongea hivi sasa, wako wale wakuu wa sheria katika kaunti zetu zote 47 katika Kenya. Hivi basi, ikiwa uchapishaji pia utapata mwenye kuongoza, kuwe na yule anayeongoza katika uchapishaji wa taarifa ambazo zitakuwa zinalemea hususan kaunti ama majimbo yale ambayo yako katika Kenya hivi sasa katika serikali ya Kenya 47, itakuwa ni sawa kabisa. Bwana Spika, tumeona ya kwamba imekuwa bora pia ya kwamba katika uchapishaji wa bili hii kuna watu wengi wana njia nyingi za kufanya ukora ama ufisadi. Wanaweza kuleta mambo ambayo yanaweza kuchapishwa na hatimaye hayo mambo yakawa ni ya uongo ama hayawezi kufanyikana, lakini tunaona ya kwamba yanaweza kupatikana katika lile gazeti. Bwana Spika, adhabu imepeanwa ya kwamba ikiwa mtu atakiuka sheria hii ama kutakuwa na uchapishaji bila ruksa ya yule ambaye anapeana ruksa ya kuchapishwa, basi huyo huenda akalipa zaidi ya laki nzima ama akawa na kifungo. Bwana Spika, ninaona kwamba hii itakuwa ni onyo kali sana kwa wale ambao pengine bili hii ikipita itaweza kusimamisha wale ambao wako na nia kama hizo. Bwana Spika, kwa kumalizia, tunaona pia vile vile huyu mchapishaji katika hili gazeti ambalo litakuwa la kuchapisha taarifa muhimu za serikali zetu za kaunti, ni kwamba ni lazima awe pia ameweza kusoma. Hususan tunasema ile takriban ile degree yake atakayokuwa yuko nayo ni lazima iwe degree ambayo inahusiana na mambo ya uchapishaji wa magazeti ya serikali. Hili ni jambo muhimu kwa sababu tutakuja kuona ya kwamba si kila mtu anaweza kuwa printer. Pia katika ule printer sio kila mtu anaweza kuwa mchapishaji, lakini kila uchapishaji unakuwa na taaluma yake. Kwa hiyo tunasema ya kwamba hii ni vizuri kwamba katika kila kaunti hivi sasa watakuwa wanategemewa ambalo lina mtu ambaye ameweza kusoma na atakuwa na juhudi ama atakuwa na uwezo wa kuweza kuona ya kwamba taarifa yoyote ambayo itakuwa imechapishwa ikiwa yeye kama ndio mkuu wa huo uchapishaji amepitisha. Bwana Spika, la mwisho kabisa, uzuri wa hii bili ni kwamba sasa inaleta mwelekeo ndani ya kaunti. Hakuna chochote kinaweza kufanywa ndani ya kaunti bila kuona ya kwamba kimechapishwa na wananchi wakapewa taarifa hiyo, na kila mtu ndani ya ile kaunti akajua ni kitu gani kinachojiri ama ni kitu gani kitakachokuja ama ni kitu gani ambacho kimechapishwa ambacho kinafaa maono ama kuongea na wale wananchi ili wajue ni njia gani wataifata wakati wa siku za usoni. Asante Bwana Spika, na pia vile vile nataka kuunga mkono bili hii. Asante.
Senator Mudhama Agnes Kavindu.
Me this opportunity to be able to contribute to this bill of Okay, I want to congratulate Senator Were for this bill and say, Mr. Speaker, that Devolution was meant to bring service to the local people at the counties. And devolving this printing system, this printer system, to the counties will enable them to do publication very fast, and it will also enable the citizens to access reading of the publication of legislation of their leaders and understand what their leaders are legislating, and this will move the bills of the counties faster than it has been, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to say this will also enable the counties to have a communication accountability, and so it will also provide jobs. Since we have the attorneys at the county level, this will also provide jobs for the citizens. And so, Mr. Speaker, I stand to support this bill. Thank you.
Senator Wario.
Asante Speaker kwa kunipatia nafasi hii. Mr. Speaker, nami nimesimama kuunga mkono mswada ambao umeletwa na Senator Were, mswada wa kuchapisha na kupeleka nakala za uchapishaji zote katika sehemu za ugatuzi zote za kaunti. Bwana Speaker, vile unavyojua government printer uko juu iko na kazi nyingi sana. Uchapishaji umerundika sana na umekuwa mwingi, na kwa hakika wakati huu ambao mswada huu dada Were aliweza kufikiria na kuileta, kwanza ni kupunguza ile kazi mingi ambayo huko juu kwa government printers ambazo zimerundika zitakuwa zitapata uchapishaji tofauti ya ugatuzi. Na kwa kweli Bwana Speaker, wale ambao watakuwa wanataka kupata nakala za siku zilizopita watakuwa wanaweza kupata nakala hizo ambazo ziko tayari katika kaunti kwa urahisi, sababu mtu ataweza kuangalia tu uchapishaji huo umetoka tarehe gani. Kwa hivyo unaweza enda ukafuatilia ukapata rekodi ya huo uchapishaji na kurahisisha kazi. Na Bwana Speaker, unavyojua ugatuzi umeletwa kwa sababu ya mambo kama hayo, ili kila kaunti iweze kujisimamia na iweze kujifanyia mambo yake, na pia watu watapata kazi kwa wingi, sababu japo ofisi ya uchapishaji itafunguliwa katika ugatuzi hizi, basi ofisi hiyo ya uchapishaji itakuwa iko na wafanyikazi wengi ambao watakuwa wanaajiriwa katika ofisi hizo za uchapishaji. Katika hali hiyo sasa, basi itakuwa imefungua fursa kwa watu fulani kuweza kupata makazi katika ofisi hizo za uchapishaji. Bwana Speaker, ninaunga mkono. Asante.
Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed.
Asante Bwana Speaker kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia mswada wa mchapishaji wa serikali ya counties. Mheshimiwa Speaker, mswada huu naunga mkono kwa sababu umekuja katika wakati mwafaka kabisa. Tumeona kutoka ugatuzi uanze karibu miaka 8 sasa ama miaka 9, tumekuwa na changamoto nyingi za serikali za county kuweza kuchapisha miswada yao kwa wakati na vile vile kuwasilisha stakabadhi muhimu ambazo zinatumika kuendesha serikali hizo. Mheshimiwa Speaker, kwa mfano, serikali nyingi za county zinapata shida kuwasilisha miswada yake kwa mchapishaji mkuu wa serikali na kuchapishwa kwa wakati. swala la kuchunga sheria, Mheshimiwa Spika, lina wakati maalum ambao atakana kufanyika. Kwa hivyo iwapo mchapishaji wa serikali atachelewa kuchapisha miswada ile, ina maana kwamba zile taratibu ambazo zinatakana kufuatwa ili sheria ile iweze, mswada ule uwe sheria, unachelewa, na hivyo inapunguza nafasi ya serikali za kaunti kuweza kufanya kazi, kutumikia wananchi wake. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, kuwepo kwa mchapishaji huyu katika serikali za kaunti itasaidia pakubwa kupunguza kwanza msongamano wa miswada na notisi katika ofisi ya mchapishaji mkuu wa serikali, na vile vile pia itawapa fursa serikali zile za kaunti kuwasilisha miswada yake kwa wakati katika bunge za kaunti, na vile vile pia wananchi kuweza kujua ni arifa gani ambazo zimetolewa kuhusiana na malipo na arifa nyingine ambazo ni muhimu katika maisha ya leo kwa leo. Mheshimiwa Spika, uwepo wa mchapishaji huu wa serikali ya kaunti utasaidia pakubwa pia kuelimisha umma katika zile sehemu ambazo katika kaunti zetu. Tumeona kwamba kupata gazeti ya serikali rasmi, Mheshimiwa Spika, kama kwa mfano Mombasa inachukua kama wiki ndio gazeti ikitoka Nairobi iweze kufika Mombasa, lakini ikiwa inachapishwa pale pale itaweza kupatikana kwa haraka na wananchi waweza kujua ni sheria gani ama ni mswada gani ambao umeweza kuchapishwa ili waweze kuchangia wakati wa mihadhara au mikutano na wahusika na yani stakeholders. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii pia itasaidia kuchapisha miswada kwa lugha ya Kiswahili ama lugha za wenyeji. Kwa mfano, miswada mingi ambayo inachapishwa na mchapishaji mkuu wa serikali inachapishwa katika ofisi za Nairobi, inachapishwa kwa lugha ya Kiingereza. Wakati wengi hawawezi kuelewa miswada hii na wakachangia kikamilifu yale ambayo yanazungumziwa katika miswada ambayo inapelekwa katika bunge za kaunti. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, hii mchapishaji wa serikali za kaunti itatoa fursa hata miswada ichapishwe kwa lugha za kienyeji katika maeneo yale au lugha ya Kiswahili ili wananchi waweze kuelewa kwa zaidi yale ambayo yanazungumziwa katika mswada hili. Mwisho, Mheshimiwa Spika, nimeona pia katika mswada kwamba kuna fursa ya Kenya National Law Reporting Council kuwa na register ya ile miswada yote ambayo imechapishwa na bunge hizi za kaunti. Hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika ni jambo zuri sana, kwa sababu yoyote ambaye atakuwa anataka kufanya reference ama kujaribu kuangalia ni wapi anaweza kupata miswada hii, itakuwa ni rahisi kuzipata kupitia kwa Kenya National Law Reporting Council, ambayo ni taasisi ya kiserikali ambayo ina uwezo na utaratibu wa kuweza kuweka rekodi hizo. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono mswada huu ambao utasaidia pakubwa kuboresha huduma za serikali za kaunti zetu katika Jamhuri ya Kenya. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Farhia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this bill. I also wish to thank my sister, Senator Petronila, for sponsoring this bill. It's an idea whose time has come. It's a very good bill. It will make everybody's life easier without belaboring what other people have already spoken about in terms of the added value for this bill. I just want to put a caution, and I'll bring an amendment. In terms of Section 2, it says in this act, authorized officers mean governor of a county, a speaker of a county executive member, executive committee member. I think in all those three, there must be a caveat that say if it is an impeachment, then they cannot gazette in the county printers, because you tell me which governor will authorize his own impeachment, which speaker will authorize his own impeachment, which CM will authorize his own impeachment. I think that is an important thing. Otherwise, in terms of oversight, it's going to be difficult for everybody. I think there's been a lot of ideas that have been contributed to this bill. I don't want to repeat what other people have said, but that is the gap I see, and I intend to bring an amendment. In case I don't, Senator Petronila, make sure that it is an amendment that you sponsor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Finally, Senator Zawadi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa nafasi hii ili nami nikaweze kuchangia kuhusu mswada huu. Yangu yatakuwa machache kwa sababu mengi yamezungumzwa, lakini wazungu wanaita, Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka kuongezea kuhusu county assemblies. Kuna miswada ambayo iko kule county assembly ambayo haijaona mwanga wa jua. Yaani bado haijawama, zile bills hazijawahi ratibishwa ama hazijawahi andikwa, hazijawahi chapishwa kwa sababu ya msongamano wa miswada mingi ambayo iko kule. Lakini kwa ufupi tu nilikuwa nazungumzia kuhusu barter trade. Kuna mswada ama kuna bili moja ambao kule Kilifi ipo, ama ni vile tu haijatokezwa, manake haijachapishwa, na kuchapishwa kwake itakuwa na shida kwa sababu tunaamini, kwa mfano mti wa mogoka kule Kilifi unapendwa sana, na sisi tulikuwa tunataka tuwe na mswada wetu kule ambao utachapishwa na utasema kwamba watakaoleta mogoka nao wabandikwe magunia ya nazi, basi wapeleke kule wanakotoka pia, ili sisi pia watu wa Kilifi tuwe tunafaidi kutokana na bidhaa nyingine zinazotoka sehemu zingine, kaunti zingine. Hilo ni la kwanza. Na pili, kuna wale ambao wanaoana kwa sijui ni kotini, sijui ni kwa DC. Na wakati wameenda kule huwa kuna muda fulani unapeanwa pale kwamba baada ya muda huu basi mnaruhusiwa kuoana. Na mara nyingi ule muda huo umeachwa ili inachapishwa kwanza, alafu baadaye ndio watu wanaruhusiwa kuoana. Na utakuta huo chapishaji unachukua muda mpaka wengine wanaamua kuoana vile vile, alafu wakishaoana baadaye ndio inajulikana kwamba huyu mtu ameoa lakini alikuwa na hili na lile, labda ilikuwa hajalitimiza ama alikuwa na familia nyingine kando, ambapo hilo lingeepukika kama ule uchapishaji ungetoka kwa wakati unaofaa ili watu wakajipanga kifamily. Kwa hivyo nami pia vile vile kama wenzangu walivyochangia, naunga mkono kwamba kuna kazi zitaongezeka, manake kuna wasomi wengi ambao wamesoma, vipaji wanavyo lakini kazi hawana. Kwa hivyo naamini pia itaongeza uajiri wa kazi, na pia vile vile miswada yetu itakuwa inapita haraka haraka. County assemblies wataweza kuwa na bills ama watakuwa na miswada mingi ya kisheria ambayo itakuwa inasaidia wananchi wetu, na pia vile vile itakuwa tumepeleka huduma mashinani. Nafikiri ndio maana ya ugatuzi. Asante.
Senator Kangata, next time make sure you get at least a card. It's easier. So you're the last one on this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I apologize for that. Let me take this opportunity to endorse this bill. It's a timely bill, as correctly stated by other colleagues. It will ensure counties process many legislations at a shorter time frame. The reason being that currently it has to publish from various governmental organizations, the executive, judiciary, also from parliament, and therefore it makes sense if you are to devolve these services. Mr. Speaker, when you look at Article 6 of the Constitution, it expressly provides that the county governments and the national governments, they are independent and also interdependent. That means, strictly speaking, every county should have several matters devolved at their level. You don't have to keep on making reference to the national governments. Particularly when you look at the several important functions that have been bestowed on the county governments, Mr. Speaker, sir. Schedule 4 of the Constitution indicates, among other duties or roles of county governments, they include agriculture, that is coffee, tea, such, milk. They include health services. And therefore, such important functions, you need to give counties the power to make decisions and legally gazette those decisions. And that is why I support this bill. But there are areas that can be improved, Mr. Speaker, sir. One area is who are the officials who have the legal duties to issue a gazette notice at the county level. According to this bill, it is proposing the governor, the CEC, some CECs, the speaker. Some of those officials, they may be subject to adverse gazette notices. Take, for instance, an impeachment of a speaker, an impeachment of a governor, and therefore, it goes without saying, a governor or a speaker most likely will not gazette his own removal from office. And therefore, in such instances, we need to amend this bill so that you either transfer that functions to the national level, where adverse gazette notices needs to be signed. Otherwise, they will most likely sit on those decisions, and that will not happen. The second issue is the issue of publicity surrounding gazette notices. Mr. Speaker, sir, for a gazette notice to have some effect, for some social and political and economic effect, it needs to be publicized. We have looked at this bill. It provides that these gazette notices can be in electronic form. But the word used there is may, meaning there is no legal compulsion for various counties to be gazetting these notices electronically. I would propose that we amend and we drop the word may. In its place, we insert the word shall, so that these gazette notices can be available electronically. That way, we increase the number of people who can access these notices once this bill becomes law. Another area, Mr. Speaker, sir, we need to consider is who is going to foot the bill, the cost for establishing this? Is it the national government or the respective county governments? That needs to be expressly provided for. I would imagine it is the respective county government, so that it doesn't entail an extra burden on the national government. Finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, county governments, they do an important role, particularly on matters agriculture. I come from an area that coffee is very important, tea is very important in Murang'a County. Also, the people of Murang'a are very good business people. Mr. Speaker, sir, also milk is also one of our most important agricultural products. And therefore, I look forward to the day when this bill will be law, so that the CC in charge of agriculture in Murang'a can be able to print or issue a gazette notice as soon as possible whenever there is a progressive bill concerning matters of agriculture has been passed by respective county assembly. Mr. Speaker, sir, I also look forward to the passage of this bill so that Murang'a County, whenever there are issues concerning health that needs to be gazetted, those issues can be done as soon as possible without awaiting the ratification by the government printer here in Nairobi. That way, we make Murang'a County more efficient, we make services to the people of Murang'a more easily available, as opposed to making reference to an office that is way up here in Nairobi. As I finalize, Mr. Speaker, sir, I think when I look at Murang'a County government, the way it is being mismanaged, the problems it is currently having, I strongly believe that a government that is fully in charge of its affairs at that local level would definitely improve services at the county level. With those few remarks, I support, but I propose those amendments. Thank you.
Okay, I now call upon the mover to reply. Senator Petronila.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to reply and thank the following senators for their worthy contributions to this bill. Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., who was magnanimous enough to second the bill, Senator Moses Wetangula, Senator Dr. Langat, Senator Mwaruma, Senator Professor Kindiki, Senator Dr. Musuruve, Senator Hargura, Senator Orengo, Senior Counsel, Senator Shionga, Senator Mazayo, Senator Kavindu Mudhama, Senator Wario, Senator Mwinyi Haji, Senator Farhia, CPA, Senator Zawadi Christine, and last but not least, Senator Kangata. Mr. Speaker, these senators have expressed themselves on this bill because they have experienced as the people in charge of the counties, they have experienced the various frustrations that counties are going through. They have expressed themselves on the issue of authenticity of the documents that counties governments produce or publish, and that having the county printer in place will also give authenticity to those documents. The Office of the County Attorney, Mr. Speaker, that is already established by a law that was passed by this House, will be working closely with the Office of the County Printer to ensure the constitutionality of the bills that will be published by the government, by the county printer. Most of the senators have expressed the frustration of the heavy load that is at the government printer, and that makes them very draconian in their way of operation, and that they actually give least priority to the county business in the job cards that they provide. And Mr. Speaker, there's also suggestions on having a Kenya Gazette that is decentralized in a manner that has Kenya Gazette Isiolo Division, Kenya Gazette Bungoma Division, Busia Division edition, and Kenya Gazette other county editions. This we shall consider as we shall be looking at the various amendments that have been proposed by various senators. Mr. Speaker, the senators also indicated that Article 6 of the Constitution, this was proffered by Professor Kindiki, provides for decentralization of government services. And Mr. Speaker, decentralization or devolution is a reality of the Constitution since we promulgated it in 2010. And therefore, citizens have a right to access information, public information, and having a government printer gives them that right. That administrative action documents are therefore required to be formalized so that we have authority we have an opportunity to access authorized documents. Most of the senators, Mr. Speaker, also indicated how late this bill is when we are 9 years into devolution, going through the second edition of devolution, and we should not get into the third devolution edition without this bill having put in place. Senator Hagura, Mr. Speaker, said that emphasized the fact that there was already a constitutional requirement for Parliament to enact such a law to actualize the establishment of a government or of a county printer, and therefore the essence of this law. He requested that there be collaboration with the national government printer, which is already in this law as passed, and the various reports that will be passed to the National Law Reporting Council to ensure standardization and some quality control. Mr. Speaker, there are also calls to work on the authorized persons. The amendments proposed by Senator Farhia and Senator Faki to make sure that on the list of authorized officers we make exemptions for cases of impeachment. The senators also emphasized the need for the county printer for the access to information by the public, which I've already outlined. Senator Faki emphasized the timely publications that we shall soon see once this has come into place. Senator Zawadi expressed frustrations at the County Assembly, having been once also a member of the County Assembly, on the issues of, for example, annulment of marriages that I presume is common in that area. And this bill therefore calls for various applications to make sure that the uniqueness of each county is expressed in the publications that will be in the county printer. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the senators for their contributions to this bill and assure them that the amendments they have proposed are included in the bill when we'll be doing the amendment stage. Mr. Speaker, I beg reply and ask that pursuant to Standing Order 61.3, I beg that the putting of the question be deferred to a later day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Senator Petronila Were. I point afternoon.
Order number 21, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 31 of 2020, second reading.
Senator Kibiru.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Salaries and Remuneration Commission Amendment Bill number 2020 be now read the second time.